Welcome. My name is Maximum Power and I'm here to give you your power moment of the day. This is lesson A5, has to do with simplifying square roots, a very important algebraic tool that you will be glad to have in your toolbox. First off, you can see that I've made a list of numbers that you could continue indefinitely, I suppose. 1 squared equal to 1, 2 squared equal to 4, 3 squared equal to 9, so on and so on and so forth. These guys on the left side, this whole list, these are what we call perfect squares. They are so-called perfect squares because they can be represented as a square of an integer. So for instance, 49 would be the next perfect square in the list, and 49, write it this way, 49 is a perfect square because it can be written as the square of 7. So what we try to do with these types of problems is find their perfect squares that are factors. And first off, a rule, this is called the square root product rule. If you have a square root of a product A times B, a square root of a product is a product of square roots. So that's a rule that holds for square roots that we're going to use here. So I'm going to ask you a question here. What is the biggest perfect square, the right side of this list here, what is the biggest perfect square that you see that divides 27? 9, that's right. 27 can be written as 9 times 3. Oh, and now we have the square root of a product. Let's make it a product of square roots. The square root of 9 times the square root of 3. What is the square root of 9? Oh, the square root of 9 is 3. 9 is a perfect square. So we have 3 square roots of 3. Okay? So another right way to write square root of 27 is 3 square roots of 3. How about this guy? What's the biggest perfect square that you can see that divides 50? 25, you're right. We can write 50 as 25 times 2. And then we can write the square root of 25 times the square root of 2. Square root of 25, 5 square roots of 2. Fine. How do you know when you're done, you ask? Well, you're done when you don't have any more perfect squares in here. So, for instance, the square root of 75. Let's look at this guy. What's the biggest? Ooh, 25 is a factor of 175. And 175 divided by 25 is 7. So 175 is the same as 25 times 7. Or the square root of 25 times the square root of 7. We can write that as, and then 5 square roots of 7. You look in here, oh, no, nothing. Another one, the square root of 40. What's the biggest perfect square that you can see in there? Oh, that's right, 4. 4 times 10 is the same as 40, so we can do the square root of 4 times the square root of 10, and we're left with 2 square roots of 10. And that's all we can do. There is no perfect square that divides 10, so we're stuck. Okay? Let's look at 3 additional problems. 11 square roots of 72. This one's just different because there's an 11 out front, right? Same kind of game. I'm going to ask you, what's the biggest perfect square that divides that thing? If you can't tell, you can ask for factors of 72 and find which ones are perfect squares, or you can just kind of go through the list. 64 is a perfect square. It doesn't divide it. Does 36? It does. 11 times the square root of 72, but that's the same as 36 times 2. Or 11 times the square root of 36 times the square root of 2. What is the square root of 36? 6. So we have 11 times 6 times the square root of 2, or 66 square root of 2. Easy peasy. This one I picked out because you might not know. It's a big number. So clearly 100 is a perfect square. 100 does not divide, right? So you would take your calculator and maybe you would try the next one. What's the next lowest perfect square? 81. Does 81 divide 448? No, it doesn't. That's 9 squared, right? And then you try 8 squared, which is 64, and 64 does divide it. 448 is the same as 64 times 7. Oh, then we can write the square root of 64 times the square root of 7. Square root of 64 is 8, and we have 8 squared is 7. Same way to write. It's an equivalent way of writing square root of 448. Notice each time I've been trying to grab the biggest one that I can. Sometimes we don't grab the biggest, and that's okay. So the biggest perfect square that divides 32 is 16. But maybe you don't see that right away, and you say, 4 divides it. Square root of 32 is the same as the square root of 4 times the square root of 8. And then the square root of 4 is 2, so we have 2 square roots of 8. Oh, but we're not done there, right? Because there is still a perfect square in 8. So we have 2 times the square root of 4 times the square root of 4, or the square root of 2, and we have 2 times 2 times the square root of 2, square root of 4 is 2, and we have 4 square roots of 2. Right? That's the same answer you would get had you recognized that right away. Oh, you'd say, oh, that's the same as 32 is the same as 16 times 2. Square root of 16 times square root of 2 is the same as 4 square roots of 2. And you're there, it just didn't have to take Trail Creek to get to Livingston. Right? Okay. That's that. I'm going to give you attached to this website, or attached to the classroom with this video, is a problem 1 through 24. Go through, make sure you can do these problems. Are you done when you get 24 problems done? No, especially if you've done them wrong. You are done with these 24 problems when you know how to do them. When you look ahead and you say, yeah, I know how to do these. Maybe you do the odds, maybe you do the evens. Make sure that you know this skill. I'm going to send you the solutions as well as the questions. I love you. Have a great day. Play today like a champion.